Welcome to talking about the weirdest games in popular franchises. Today we're looking at really well-established franchises to find the weirdest of the black sheep because some of these series do have multiple black sheep. And I'm going to give my opinion. There's obviously more weird games out there in different series. I think if you looked at almost any major series, you could find a black sheep type of game. But these are just 12 that really stood out to me in franchises that have like a lot of games or are really well renowned. Now, just quickly to point out, some of these games are great, some of them are really bad, and so that's not really a qualifier. They just have to be weird. Let's roll. Number 12 is X-Men Ravages of the Apocalypse. Now, X-Men, they probably aren't the most famous superheroes in terms of video game releases, but they have had a few hits with stuff like X-Men Children of the Atom, X-Men Legends, and X-Men vs. Street Fighter. So I really want to know who the heck greenlit Ravages of the Apocalypse. This is a PC game that was released in 1997, and it's a Quake expansion that actually requires you to have the original Quake game to even play it. But this isn't Quake. This is X-Men Ravages of the Apocalypse. A game probably better left forgotten to time, and I think time basically has forgotten it. But where to begin? First off, this is an X-Men first-person shooter game, and in the one-player mode, the X-Men are not even playable characters. So a series revolving around really cool mutants with really cool powers instead becomes a clone of a better shooter with bullets. Bullets that don't catch fire, turn invisible, or anything like that. And on top of that, you fight cyborg clone versions of the X-Men characters. Number 14 is Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter. I really like the Breath of Fire games. They're really classic, no-frills JRPG goodness, and I think that's why Capcom felt like they needed to change up the series after 4 pretty safe entries spanning the Super Nintendo and PlayStation 1. Dragon Quarter is immediately different. You'll first notice the graphics. There's no more sprites. It's all 3D and cel-shaded, and the characters look kind of strange, and it's kind of up to the player whether or not that's a good or bad thing. Gone are the fantasy settings, instead putting players into a dystopian underground world with very little nature to experience. And the biggest change, I think, is with the combat and the mechanics. The first 4 games had pretty traditional, no-frills, turn-based gameplay. Dragon Quarter, on the other hand, has a turn-based system that kind of mixes strategy RPG elements where movement, placement, and strategy are all critically important. And a game over can literally have you starting over the whole game. While it's not a very long game, it is difficult, and players feeling overwhelmed can just start over and carry over that experience. I hated this game so much upon release, but I've since come to really like it just because of how different it is and how fun the combat is. I do think it's a great game, and I hope that more people eventually get to try this game because it is truly underrated and fairly ahead of its time with what it was trying to accomplish. Number 10, Star Fox Adventures. I know Star Fox is a series with quite a few low points in it, but at one point Star Fox was a really acclaimed rail shooting series, peaking with Star Fox 64, which is still one of my favorite shooters of all time. So how the heck did we get Star Fox Adventures? This is an early GameCube title developed by Rare right before they were sold to Microsoft, and it actually originally started off as a game that Rare was making called Dinosaur Planet. However, Nintendo looked at it and basically told them, you're not going to release this game as is, it's fun, but it's missing a little something. How about turning it into a Fox game? So a weird origin story to an even weirder game. Gone are the spaceship battles, for the most part anyway. And instead, it's an adventure game where Fox is exploring planets on foot, fighting dinosaurs, and solving puzzles with a scepter. Interesting. The game is pretty much remembered for being really quirky and having dinosaurs. Some love it, some hate it. I've actually never played this, so if you have played it, let me know what you think below. Anyway, all I really know about this game is this is where the Fox series seems to take a serious credibility hit, whether or not it's a good or bad game. Number 9, Tetris DS. Does any game in history have more iterations than Tetris? I personally think maybe not. And while it has seen some mashups like Puyo Puyo Tetris and some interesting takes on the design of the game like Tetris Effect, Tetris DS was a super fun experimentation that played with the Tetris format in a way that no Tetris game has really quite dared to. The original Tetris mode is here. It's kind of labeled as the marathon mode with Mario, but a lot of other Nintendo series are represented. For example, you got the Legend of Zelda Tetris that asks players to create puzzles using the blocks. There's a DK version that's kind of a tug-of-war battle with Tetris blocks coming from both sides of the screen. It was a genius idea, it paid off, and seeing the Nintendo characters and hearing their theme music mashed up with Tetris blocks and unique puzzle modes, in my opinion, made this one of the best DS games and an absolute must-have. Tetris never loses its identity here while successfully meshing the Nintendo franchises into the mix. Number 8, Puzzle Fighter 2. Street Fighter is a game that has seen some crossovers in side games, stuff like kind of Pocket Fighter or X-Men vs. Street Fighter, but all of it, in my opinion, is pretty relatively safe territory. It feels like a proper Street Fighter spin-off, just maybe mixing up other universes and stuff. However, Puzzle Fighter 2 mixes puzzle game and fighting game mechanics, and it does a very good job. I do actually have qualms with needing to win 2 rounds against every opponent, but it's a small gripe, in my opinion, considering just how damn fun this game is. Pick your Street Fighter character, or Darkstalkers. Oh yeah, Darkstalkers is here. And get ready to fight, only instead of fists, you need to build up colored blocks and make them explode, via little gems. And while you're doing that, your adorable little chibi character will fight your opponent on the screen. Win the whole combat, and you're privy to some trash talk and making it to the next round. I mean, seriously, what's not to love about this game? You got adorable little characters, you got vibrant colors, addicting puzzle action, and it's a dirt cheap game on modern consoles. Just pick it up and try it. It's weird in the best way possible. Number 7 is Fire Emblem Shadows of Valentia. Like a lot of second games at this time, I'm thinking about stuff like Mario, Zelda, Final Fantasy, Castlevania. Fire Emblem was a really strange follow-up to the original game and deviated pretty far from the blueprints of its predecessor. But the original game, called Fire Emblem Gaiden, stayed in Japan, so we're going to focus on the remake, Shadows of Valentia, which was remade for the 3DS in 2017. This is still a strategy RPG, and there's still permadeath, but there's no weapon triangle, there's first-person exploration in towns and dungeons, and when you run into enemies in the dungeon, little mini strategy RPG battles trigger, which are basically like miniaturized versions of the traditional Fire Emblem combat. Overall, Shadows of Valentia is a really, really fun game. It's unique, and it shows that the Fire Emblem formula really can be deviated from successfully. And it's also one of the most visually stunning 3DS games. However, I don't know if it's because it's weird or just being a late 3DS game when the Switch was already released, but I don't think many people played this game, and so I'm not sure that we'll see anything like it again. But this is a strange Fire Emblem game that holds up really well thanks to the remake. Number 6, Final Fantasy VIII. Ooh, this was a hard one. There are so many strange Final Fantasy games, Final Fantasy II, Mystic Quest, Crystal Chronicles, and just like so many other ones that Dirge of Cerberus, I don't know, a lot of them fit the bill. Because of that, I felt like I wanted to stick with the mainline franchise, and I do think FF2 is really odd in a bad way, but I think FF8 actually should take the crown considering that the series was established and it followed up one of the most popular video games of all time, Final Fantasy VII. Final Fantasy VIII does retain some Final Fantasy staples. It's got turn-based combat, there's still summons, there's a lengthy adventure with side quests and a kind of grandiose main story, and on the other hand, it has just as many peculiarities. The draw system, for instance, forced players to really monotonously, draw magic from enemies, which can be allocated for stats and boost, while your summons, called GFs, leveled up and offered vital skills and stat boost as well. The game also strangely wavers between fantasy and sci-fi and never quite finds its identity, I would say. And it definitely has the most nonsensical plot in the entire series where like every character grew up knowing each other and had an amnesia. Like, oh god, I don't even want to remember it. But what other FF game can you literally drive a car in while you're attending classes in this giant flying monstrosity known as a garden? The game's super love or hate, and it's generally considered a black sheep in one of the lesser FF games. I will always love this game in a weird way, mostly for nostalgia, to be honest, but I do have to admit that it is harder to return to than most of the other classic FF games, just because it is so strange, and the strangeness isn't always a good thing. With Star Wars Master of Terras Kasi. Star Wars is no stranger to great games, middling games, bad games, difficult games, and games in just about every genre known to man. But Terras Kasi is a shoo-in for the most bizarre game the IP has ever seen, and not in a good way, unfortunately. It's a fighting game developed for the PS1 that came out in 1997, and the idea of a Star Wars fighting game might sound fun on paper to most of you, but this is an early 3D fighter that plays worse than other games that you probably heard of, like Virtua Fighter 2 or Tekken 3. Plus, it's just weird. I mean, you can choose iconic Star Wars characters, and you have a choice of going melee or wielding a weapon. Which means that because all the characters are basically even, you can actually kick a lightsaber-wielding Darth Vader's ass with a bare-fisted, bikini-clad Princess Leia. And it doesn't really help that the game feels really sluggish and the combat's pretty uninteresting. So the weirdness of the game is just that there's a fighting game here and the mismatch of characters and stuff, and it's fun for a good laugh, but it's honestly not a good game. So, Sonic 06. Wait, are we back? Okay, let's not mention that game again then. Alright, Sonic R has some serious identity issues. This is the only quote-unquote new Sonic game on the Sega Saturn, and it's not a traditional Sonic game, but a Sonic racing game. But a racing game where your characters run around on foot instead of using vehicles. And a racing game with 3D platforming elements, multiple paths, and secrets to find. And a racing game with a Europop soundtrack sung by TJ Davis. Seriously, what is this game? I love the Saturn, many of you know that, and while I think Sonic R has some of the best 3D graphics on the console, the gameplay is just so strange. First, the controls are just god-awful, they're clunky, especially for the fast speed. And I can't help but feel like they just lumped in 3D platforming mechanics to try to make the Sonic-less Sega Saturn seem like its mascot didn't completely abandon the hardware. Anyway, it's honestly not a terrible game, but it's also not a very good one. You don't need to play this unless you are either a very diehard Sonic fan or a very diehard Saturn game. I would honestly recommend moving on to better Sonic games. Number 3, Zelda. Zelda 2 is usually heralded as the weirdest Zelda game in the series, and I do give it an honorable mention. But at the same time, it was an NES game before the series was truly established, and it still retained kind of that upgrade dungeon exploration aesthetic the first game had. It just got really weird with stuff like 2D screens and an annoyingly hard difficulty, which, is pretty strange for Zelda, for sure. But I still think Majora's Mask deserves to be called the strangest Zelda game, but in like a way better way than Zelda 2. The game centers around a time mechanic where you're constantly resetting a 3D cycle and exploring Clock Town and the world. And you're doing that to find masks, rupees, heart pieces, secrets, and so on. There are dungeons, but they're not really the focus of the game. There's fewer of them, and they honestly almost feel like side content in the game compared to the side quests, which kind of feel like the main game in a weird way. Majora's Masks ask you to immerse in a world and focus on the side quest, predominantly collecting the masks, to beat the game in the proper way and explore the game even more and unlock more of its secrets. It's also the darkest game in the series, does not take place in Hyrule, and it features a moon that's trying to crush the world. I personally think that this is an absolute masterpiece and a black sheep. Some people think it's just a black sheep. So, whether or not you get it or not is up to you. But if you do get it, you will experience not only one of the best Zelda games ever made, but one of the most successful attempts to explore the fourth dimension in a video game. Number 2, Mega Man with Mega Man Soccer. Ugh. Capcom really loves to toy with Mega Man and string us fans along for some extreme highs and some extreme lows. I've seen him in platformers, 3D adventure games, RPGs, Metroidvanias, but nothing comes even close to as strange as Mega Man Soccer on the Super Nintendo. I can really only guess here that Capcom saw Mario in everything from tennis to karting to eating shrooms and thought Mega Man had the same charisma. But they were pretty much mistaken because Mega Man Soccer really is not all that fun, and it really has pretty much been forgotten to time. Never remade, never remastered. Don't even think it's on Switch Online. Mega Man Soccer has decent visuals and sprites that would honestly be more impressive if there wasn't regular slowdown and if you didn't have the ability to have the same friggin' character on the field. Like, you can have a blue Mega Man opposing my blue Mega Man. They look exactly the same, almost as if you're going to pass it to someone to score a goal for your opponent. Like, not really cool. The game does feature a few modes and a number of robot masters, and yes, there are kind of powers you can attain in the form of special shots. Everything about this screams weird, and I don't know, maybe it could have been a really good game with a little bit more love or a little bit more time in the oven, but I just can't help but feel like this is a slightly busted buster of a Mega Man game. Number 1, of course, goes to Mario. I had a hard time choosing between Sunshine or Mario 2. But I chose Mario 2 because Sunshine is strange in oh so many ways, but really the platform levels and the whole idea of collecting the shines to beat the game, it felt relatively close to what Mario 64 established. Mario 2, on the other hand, is like not even really a Mario game. It's a Mario reskin of a Japanese game called Doki Doki Panic. If you were like me as a kid, you loved Mario 1, you loved Mario 3, and then you just kind of occasionally pop Mario in to your Nintendo to see if you liked it more than the last time, and that pretty much never happened. Unlike the first game, you can actually choose from both of the Mario brothers as well as Peach and Toad, and they all have unique attributes. Mario can run fast, Luigi has a weird little kicky jump thingy, Peach can hover, and Toad, I'm not even lying when I say this for a dramatic effect, but I have no idea what Toad is actually good at. So if you actually know what he's at, why you should choose Toad Mario 2, let me know. What is his advantage? The gameplay really takes the cake though. You begin the game not by running from right to left, but floating down. And then, jumping on enemies doesn't kill them. Instead, you got to jump on them and throw them. Only sometimes when you throw them, they just get back up. So you got to throw them in like pits or something. Or if you want to kill them faster, you just throw vegetables at them. And I'm not even lying when I say that. Is this Mario? The bosses are just as strange. Instead of fighting Koopas, you're fighting creatures like Birdo. I mean, yeah, I guess Birdo has become an iconic Mario character, but still very strange. And the levels have kind of strange mechanics too, like finding keys under turnips and avoiding meatballs on vines. This is kind of a classic, I guess, but it's not one that I can truly love. And, despite Mario being in so many games over the years, this is the strangest mainline game. And that's partially because it is a mainline game in canon. Like, yes, there are probably weird Mario games if you're going to like Mario's Missing or something, but come on, can we like not lump education Mario games into this conversation? So Mario 2. All right, guys, that's it for today. But let me know, what is the weirdest game in a major franchise, good or bad, that you've either played or stands out to you? Don't forget to like and subscribe. Game on.